wonderful viewers. Welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to be taking a spoiler-free look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 91. I got a lot to say about this chapter, and first off, this is the first chapter that has deeply disappointed me. And yet I felt milder sense of disappointment like this, and then Matsumoto would just turn it around with the next chapter. Matsumoto is very fond of corkscrew plot twists. Because this is a Shonen Jump manga, because it has the limitations of a manga in that genre, Matsumoto has to get creative if he wants to surprise an audience who's been reading manga since we were tiny. So I want to tell you a story from my university days. I had a really awesome academic advisor my freshman year. He just loved to yank assumptions right out from under your feet and send your concepts tumbling. And we had this one class one day. He comes up, he goes, and he says, "So, tell me something. If something's worth doing, no, how did he phrase it? He said, have you heard this saying? If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right." And we all raised our hands. He said, "Okay, how many of you believe that saying?" And most of us raised our hands. And then he says, "Well, how many of you believe the saying, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing wrong?" And we, of course, all put our hands down. And then he told us a story. So he told us a story about this friend he had who was out working out lumber cutting or something, and his arm got sawed off. And he said how the emergency responders did everything right. They grabbed it, they put the arm in a bag in ice, got him to the hospital as soon as they could. They got the arm reattached after, several different surgeries. But they did everything right. That's an example of something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Then he told us about another example where another guy got his arm cut off. And in this example, the guy's out way back in the wilderness working. His arm gets cut off. And they can't get him to the hospital. They don't have any ice to put the arm in. They don't have a plastic baggie. So they put a tourniquet on his arm. They wrap a belt around it and they cinch it down. And they just, putting a tourniquet on like that, it destroys the tissue that below the tourniquet away from the heart. And so it means that they'll never be able to attach his arm. But had they not done that, he still would have died. They did it wrong. So was it still worth doing? And then after that pair of stories, the professor would ask us, so if something's worth doing, it's worth doing wrong. Do you believe that now? And of course, we all raised our hands. When you're dealing with an elite situation, and really any university is an elite situation, most populations, only about a quarter of the, probably less than a quarter of the population gets their bachelor's degree. And you're talking about people who are highly motivated, usually highly intelligent, and you're going to get an awful high percentage of perfectionists. People who believe that if you don't do it right, it's not worth doing. People who have to complete those video games with a high score. People who don't consider that they've passed the class unless they got an A. And that was something that I had a lot of professors who are very strict about it. It's like, look, you got a C in my class. That's not a failure. You passed. It's not, I don't design this class so that everybody can get an A. You could get an A in that class. You absolutely could. But you had to earn it with blood, sweat, and tears and put an inordinate amount of effort in. Most of us who came to those classes, we were completely used to the fact that it didn't matter what the class was. If we put in the effort, we could get an A. And then we hit a class where it's not like that anymore, where we claw out B's and C's and we're traumatized by them. We are, in short, perfectionists. And each of us, I think, had to hit that moment, take that class that was so far out of our range of ability that we knew we couldn't pass it. And at that point, you make a choice. Do I continue taking this class and accept the fact that I am going to graduate with a class on my record that says C+ on it? Or do you drop the class and don't do it because you can't do it right? Get rid of the mark. Now, myself, I'm a completionist, and even if I can't get that perfect score, I've always felt motivated, obligated, compelled to finish something. And so I ended up, I took a few hits on my GPA because I'm not going to drop a class. Also, I think those classes were all mandatory. Organic chemistry. My friend found me crying in the cafeteria lobby. Anyway, long story. But anyway, why am I going off on this tangent? In this chapter, the point of this chapter is Matsumoto addressing that perfectionist streak, that part of the brain of the high achieving that says, if I can't do this exactly right, there's no point in doing it at all. And there's a sort of a philosophical argument going on in this chapter between two competing views. The one that says, we're here to do the thing. We may not do it the best, but we're going to go at it with everything we got. And even if we fail, even if we don't do it, pull the stunt off perfectly, we're still going to do it. It's kind of a philosophy of give it your best, but accept that it was good enough. The principle of, I'm just happy to have participated. It's that marathon principle. With shorter races, it is all about the guy who wins. For the 100-yard dash, you get over that line first. Even for longer races, it's all about who gets over the line first. But in a marathon or the Iditarod, it's quite literally about who survived. The point of a marathon is do the thing and don't die. You get cheers just as excited for the 100th person to come over the finish line of a marathon as you do for the first. I mean, seriously, can you name one first place marathon winner? When you think of winning the marathon, you just think of a crowd of people staggering and stumbling over that finish line, their faces utterly exhausted and filled with joy. The point of a marathon is to finish, to participate, to be one of that joyous throng. And this is a very different mentality to the point of the shorter races, which are if you're not the first, who cares? Because almost anyone can cover 100 meters. I mean, slowly, but yeah. Most people can run 100 meters. It's, are you there first? Are you the fastest? But with a marathon, not everybody can run a marathon. Just having the ability to do it is something amazing. And just having 99.9999% of people run a marathon just to say that they finished the marathon. Some people walk the marathon. And those are the two principles that are competing here. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And if something's worth doing, it's worth doing wrong. And if something's worth doing, the point is to do it as best as possible, or the point is just to have done it. The marathon versus the sprint. Surviving versus winning. And this very deep philosophical conversation that Matsumoto's got going on here, it really does make the chapter worth reading. And I enjoyed the backstory. I enjoyed how Matsumoto shows that many of the things that give us their hang-ups don't come because people were evil or bad or even antagonists, really. That a lot of the things that give, especially if you're a naturally born high achiever, the things that give you hang-ups are reality, your own nature. And even if you have a nemesis, someone you focus on as the focal point of all your failures, it's probably not their fault. But what disappointed me about this chapter? Matsumoto faked out, did one of his plot screw cork twists by, I don't want to say chickened out. We had a chance that Matsumoto could have made a major change in the series, could have severely altered one of the main characters' lives. And that would have been a fascinating thing to see. But Matsumoto didn't do that. Now, threatening to harm a main character and pulling back at the last moment and not harming them is a massive shonen trope. It's literally embedded in the medium. And so that makes me very suspicious of it. So now I'm thinking, well, whenever you have a really blatant shonen trope like this, whenever I've been disappointed like this, Matsumoto's always turned it around by using it to hide something. So what could it be hiding here? Could it, in this instance, I think it might be hiding character development for another character, or plot development for some of number 9's shenanigans. That's just what I'm hoping. It could have been Matsumoto just giving in to the natural Shonen Jump urge to trauma bait and then pull back on the trauma at the last minute. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Did the failure of Matsumoto to follow through on dramatically harming a main character disappoint you? Do you think that this chapter was a dialogue between perfectionism and just living and existing? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button. Go check out the links below the video to get yourself a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird. Let's work it out. Peace out, my wonderful viewers.